Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And welcome everybody to the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting. And my name is Alexander. I'm from Canada, and I am the host today, subbing in for Mark Anderson, who is in Sanya at this point in time, and I'm being assisted by Randy Miller. Randy, how you doing?
100%. And yourself?
I'm very good, thank you. And I'm also assisted by Elias Sabaptitis. And how are you doing, Elias?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Okay, everybody is loud and clear. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is start off with a little presentation here with respect to the cosmic rays. And it'll take about 10 minutes and it'll get us going here, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to the session, beautiful Sunday afternoon. Nothing exciting happening, just probably the biggest event in your lifetime. And here we go. Thank you so much for all being here. It would help if I would share it.
To live, to exist anywhere in the universe. Be it this on this planet, be it in the space, to manifest itself in a combination of tangible and non-tangible existence, but containing continuity of life. One will come to understand one needs different dimensions of connection, as we have talked about before. Carbon-12 is what we call as an energy pack, is for life existing, connected in a common denominator to what we call cosmic rays, which usually work on the back of the carbon-14. But in a way, if you understand it, as we spoke last week, and we showed some explanation and figures last week, the common denominator, what we call the DC line, stays on the hydrogen. The carbon characteristics is overloaded on this common denominator. So when you come into the matter state, life state on this planet, you get a deviation or division or isotopes of plasma energy, not matter state energy, of carbon. That it connects you to the source, but it connects you to the matter state, which is carried by the carbon. In a way, if you would have understood, and this is for the scientists who understand or come to understand this technology in the laboratories of the Keshe Foundation in the future, is You have that common denominator hydrogen, which connects us to the creator and the creation. And then we are overloaded on top of that with matter state energy plasma at the time, place, and point, which means we travel on the carbon-12 on the atmospheric condition, gravitational condition of this planet. But on another planet, another position, we get a conversion of the carbon, which comes to be an energy level, what we call as a radiation of carbon-14, to become matter state in that position. What this means is that in the universe, once the line of common denominator is established, and then overloaded by the energy fields, which is the deviation according to interaction of the fields of the environment, then that environment dictates how carbon-14, as what we call cosmic ray, is converted into that matter in interaction with the field, gravitational magnetic fields of the space, time, and position, which leads to the condition of creation of new life in that position. This is important for our knowledge seekers to understand, and the scientists who work in the space technology of the future. What this means, if you want to travel from Earth to another system, another planet, you travel on the common denominator of hydrogen with overload of the amino acid carbon connection of the man to the conversion of magnetic fields in a way of gravitational magnetical field of the position that allows you to manifest yourself in that time, space, and position. Which means if you land in a place that there is no carbon, it doesn't mean you cannot exist. When man understands this, when the scientists can go through this conversion, so when we send the man to space, we send the man with the amino acid of the Earth to space, plus the conversion to the time and place and position. So in a way, let's say you have Mr. Cohen, and in that position, carbon-14 in conversion by reflection of the carbon-60 of the what we call universal strength can convert to be potassium. So you actually have Mr. Cohen plus potassium, plasmatic magnetic fields, and this allows you to create a new, what we call, as you like it, hemoglobin, that man can survive in that place and position and can react and live the position and time and space. We know this knowledge, we know this technology, we see it on a daily basis, but we never understood this. If you look at what we call the plants, which eat flies, which eat live animals, they trap them in and then digest them. They go through this process because once the clap are closed with a fly inside it, now it's not anymore atmospheric condition, it's the plasmatic condition of the two surfaces which they have trapped the animal in. It's like the jaw of the man, when you close, you put a banana in your mouth and you close your mouth, that banana is not a banana plasmatic condition anymore, even if it looks as a banana in your mouth. So, if you understand this, man will learn from these plants, man will learn the cosmetic condition and universal condition and cosmic ray condition of the conversion into existing two dimension in space that allows the soul of the man, when returns back to earth condition, to go back on carbon-12, amino acid, look like a man, hemoglobin, and the structure of the man. Then you understand. We call it the amino acid, but the amino acid, the strength of the hemoglobin is different than amino acid of the plant. It's different than amino acid which created the stone. Then man has to find out how to create the same amino acid combination of Mr. Cohen, that they can coexist and live within each other and through each other. What this means, it means when I put you in a system with your beautiful dress, you're going to a wedding from London to New York, and you happen to be hungry, or you carry an apple in your handbag or a banana just in case you go hungry, I have to transfer your amino acid of your human flesh. I have to transfer the amino acid of the apple or a banana, and I have to transfer the amino acid of the clothes you wear. If you cannot get this right, we have a beautiful woman in birthday suits in New York with no food to eat because we forgot to transfer the handbag. We did not understand the concept. And this is why many of you knowledge seekers who've been with us cannot manifest yourself. Because we never allowed, we never built this into our systems, even though we know about it for decades. With a new system, which is developed with the Keshe Foundation, all these matters now is complete. Which means, in the coming time, when we put you through these tests, like those of you who join us tomorrow, not only you'll be able to transmute in the dimension of energy of the soul, you can transfer the plasmatic condition of the amino acid of the content of your body. In a way, you just had a beautiful steak in London, and sorry, you forgot to carry the steak. You arrive in New York and you're hungry because we didn't have the right combination of the mustard and the chips you had with the food in London, because there is amino acid of vegetation inside, different than the amino acid of the body. This implication, understanding of this science, it needs to be unraveled, it needs to be understood. And the prime position to understand it for the scientist is in the stomach of the man, the same as that plant which closes. How we convert the amino acids of different structures into what we call energies of the body of the man. How do we convert the or calcium or magnesium tablets, which is in a solid state, into your body, and then you take the energy of it? Our body does this transmutation of the energies automatically, but we never understood, and we just do as we done. Ignorance is a bliss. Now that we have entered the science of transmutation, energy transfer, we have to understand, otherwise, unfortunately, you don't want a bride to turn up in a wedding from another planet naked because you forgot to add the amino acid of the position, connection of the time and the space and manifestation. You got to understand, as I said, you have not even entered standing up, let alone walking on the steps of the knowledge of the universe, which is thousands of steps.
And so welcome everybody. This is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting on Sunday, March 17th, 2024. And I want to welcome everybody here for this very special weekend edition. And I was wondering if we could discuss a few things here. And for instance, one of them is, I think we just covered something here. Let me see if we can. So, Elias, do you have the World Peace Treaty thing handy?
Not really. I
Let me see.
can download it.
Just a moment. I'm getting a little. Why am I getting confused? I'm getting confused because I'm inexperienced. How do we do this? I'm in between so many screens. Well, let me, while I'm figuring that out, Randy, do you think that you could help me out here? We're going to try and read something.
Not a problem.
Not a problem, he says. So,
Since last year, Mr. Keshe has been talking about this conference in China. And in November last year, Mr. Keshe started a game changer for humanity. Mr. Keshe said that in this conference in China might show the first full flight. By talking about showing the full flight at the conference in China, Mr. Keshe managed to bring our attention and energy to it. Since we are very physical and always want to see something in physicality. But Mr. Keshe was preparing us for something far beyond 520 seconds. The possibility of transmuting through our and interact with the soul of the creator in Sanya and manifesting the true wish in our Sanya.
Randy, can I just stop you for a second, please?
Sure.
Okay, there's are you on a cell phone?
No, I'm on my computer.
Oh, why is it there's so much interference? Okay. Well, it's a good thing we have the transcript, and I hope everybody is following. So you're coming in and going out, but let's carry on, please.
If we accept that the field can create the and have to be created only from the
Okay, now we've lost you, Randy.
that's weird.
Yes, and everybody's been complaining about the new update. So you can hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, so let me yeah, let me pick it up here and then we'll try again. Since last year, Mr. Keshe has been talking about this conference in China, and in November last year, Mr. Keshe started to tell us what to expect from this conference and how it would be a game changer for humanity. Mr. Keshe said that in this conference in China might show the first full flight. By talking about showing the full flight at the conference in China, Mr. Keshe managed to bring our attention and energy to it. Since we are very physical and always want to see something in physicality, but Mr. Keshe was preparing us for something much bigger, far beyond anything we could have imagined. On the 522nd Knowledge Seekers Workshop, Mr. Keshe went even further and brought us the possibility of transmuting through our souls and interact with the soul of the Creator through the Keshe Foundation systems in Sanya, and even of manifesting the true wishes of our souls in the cups of Sanya. If we accept that the fields can create the amino acids and life doesn't have to be created only from the matter state, then we can reflect that back onto our life, our own life, that we were created out of the fields. If we really understand this, then transmutation will be easy for us. One moment, please. Thank you. If we really understand this, then transmutation will be easy for us, because then through our emotion, we convert ourselves back into the energy of the plasma. And through our emotion, travel to wherever we want and manifest ourselves according to the laws of how the plasmas interact. So now we find out we have everything within us. But if we cannot accept that, then we can use the Keshe Foundation systems to create the necessary fields and conditions for expansion of our soul and travel. We already do this in our dream state, and with the systems and Friday sessions, we will gradually become conscious of it and can control where we go. Mr. Keshe is giving us a special opportunity to do this in Sanya, China. We can make our cup of life according to our wishes and bring them to China. They will interact with the special systems that can create cosmic rays and the fields of the soul of the Creator. And the true wishes of our soul will manifest in our cup. Remember, he said, true wish of our soul. So we should come with a pure heart and intention to Sanya. If we understand what has just been discussed, this is the key to the world of creation. Not only are we given the key, but in Sanya, we'll be given the car to test drive our soul. The soul of the knowledge seekers who can do this will awaken and go to Sanya. An even easier method has been gifted to us. Mr. Keshe gave us the secret to the 3 bottles tested by the nuclear authorities in Belgium. Their instruments picked up different powerful fields in the 3 bottles that they themselves cannot create nor understand. All Mr. Keshe did was to blow on the water in the 3 bottles. The water was the same in all the bottles, but the fields were different. He demonstrated to us the power of our emotions and why we have to come to understand them and create them. This is the same as what the scriptures refer to as blowing life into existence. Some knowledge seekers can try to blow life into their cups inside.
I made a few adjustments, so if you want me to read the next, I can. Is this clearer now?
Yes, much clearer. I will wonder if you could introduce some of the panelists.
Can we ask questions, interact at this point?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, can you expand more on blowing life into existence? Because I remember growing up, Christian religion, it says in the beginning, I think God blew the wind and life came about. It has always been a mystery, but now I'm thinking there's some truth to that. Is it relatable?
I think what Mr. Keshe is relating to is the breath of life. After a baby is born, the first thing they want to do is breathe. They have to, slap the. What he did. Another life. And put.
Well, whoever is talking, we can't hear you. Sorry, who's this?
Randy, you cut out again. Can you repeat, please?
What I was talking about was the fact that Mr. Keshe, I think he's referring to the breath of life. He brewed his own energy. If I'm still, I'd have to take a few minutes. Headphones here. minute.
While Randy is just getting organized there, Ike, what was interesting about that statement for me, and I just want to draw your attention to that, was that there were 3 cups or 3 bottles of water, which Mr. Keshe blew on, and they were all the same water. But the fact that he had to blow on them in a different sequence meant that each one was different. And this is something that we all have to understand, where the variety in our life comes, because we're all part of the humanity, but each of us is individual. And it's something that we've always wanted to, figure out, how do you get such variety when we're all the same? And this is exactly how it happens. So this is one of the reasons why all the cups were different. But Randy, are you back? Do you want to answer the blowing on the water question? Oh, that's unfortunate. We're
So the
not.
blow could be amino acids into that cup.
Yes, precisely. See, the amino acids are the building blocks of life. But the thing is, when we're talking about amino acids, are we talking about the physical matter or the plasmatic matter? So we have to come to the understanding that there's both all the time, and that the plasmatic matter is the substrate for the physical matter. And so this is where science is having a difficult time, you see, because if you have a specific matter at a specific part of space at a definite moment of time, then at that point, it is fed by the cosmic rays. And then if you have another portion of matter at a definite part of space at a definite moment of time, it too is being fed by cosmic rays, but not the same. Because when we talk about cosmic rays, and this is where we all fall into the pit, not all cosmic rays are the same. Because these cosmic rays are part of the transmission. And so we never have divided or decided what is it that is being transmitted and what is being absorbed. Because there's no such thing as one and the same energy which constitutes a charge at 2 adjacent increments of time. And in fact, there's no such thing as one and the same energy, regardless. Because there's always a connection and there's always a flow. And the key word here is always. So that means everything is changing constantly. If everything is changing constantly, how can we keep coming together with the same elements and the same family of energy? So we are part of the humanity family. But as you can see, we have a common denominator, and that is the principal connection to the Creator. But the variety and spice of life happens through the principles of flow and connection. How am I doing on that, Ike?
Yes, sorry, my microphone was up.
So that's making sense?
Yes, it's I kind of was thinking in that direction, but I wasn't sure. You know how everything has a deeper meaning, and then knowing that the religion has always been to control and turning the facts to suit them. So I wasn't sure if that aspect of the knowledge is the same to what Mr. Keshe was saying. In a way, it cannot make sense the way you explained it.
Well, the most dramatic thing is the way Mr. Keshe explained it, and I think it's quite shocking with what he did in Belgium there, right? So all he did was blow on the water in 3 bottles. The water was the same, but the fields were different. And this
Right.
is a confounding issue. How can they all be the same and still all be different? I think if we can understand this, then we can understand much better that the matter state creation from
And Alex, when you said different, you mean different in strength, right?
yes, difference in strength.
Okay.
But what Mr. Keshe has developed a skill that I can't attest to that I have this skill, but the implication is that we all have this skill. So that skill is ingrained in our soul, but it doesn't mean that we can use that skill. We don't have the skill to use the skill, if you will. So this skill needs to be developed. And the first thing, of course, is the awareness. We have to be aware that we can do this. And how do we do this? So what is fascinating is what the Brazilian community has been doing. And I'm hope that many of you were party to that the last couple of days, because what the Brazilian community was trying to do was to connect with the intention with all the people in Sanya. And I think for many of us, we were able to do that in one way or another. But, the question always comes out is, how is it manifest? And so, we rely on things that we know. And so we understand vision, we understand feeling, we understand emotion. And so we're all trying to interpret that. But the revelation really is in terms of an advanced science, can we do that through the transmutation process? And that is a challenge. And I think the main reason it's a challenge is because in terms of our awareness, we're at the beginning stages. So if we were to describe that like on an educational platform, we were in the kindergarten stage here. So, it's very hard for us to understand without knowing that this is possible. And now as we're coming to the point where we're told that this is possible, and the proof, this is phenomenal proof, because none of us have the capability of testing, using equipment that's available to the nuclear authorities. But what's confounding to me is that the nuclear authorities are not prepared to move ahead with this. That we who don't have this capability of uncovering these secrets, we are the ones charged with the responsibility of bringing this thing forward. And so this is how we do it, through the fields of intention. And if we can do that and perfect that, then we are one step closer to doing what they have been unable to do or unwilling to do. What I think the main course here is that it has now been demonstrated to them that it's possible, and so they're questioning, how is it possible? But more importantly, what they're questioning is, what does it mean to the average Joe like you and me? And I can tell you in a sentence what it means is the freedom and emancipation of humanity. It's not a big deal, is it?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Welcome back, Randy.
Then I lost all my.
Oh, it just seems that once you go over a certain what do you call it, volume, it cuts out. Oh, that's really unfortunate, Randy. We're really missing your valuable input. Elias, I was wondering, do you have anything to add to this discussion? Things that I might have missed?
Yeah, with respect to the water, it's very similar. I was thinking to the cups that we have been making, and that is every cup, whether it's the CuO, CO2, the zinc, or the CH3, all the cups have the same water, right? We have a mixture of salt mixed with water. So all of them have the same water, just like the example Mr. Keshe gave. However, each cup is different, isn't it? So being different, it has a different field strength. And so I was trying to correlate the two in my mind. And that's what I sort of was thinking.
So the difference really is when we're making the cups of life, we're making it from the physicality into the plasma state. But what Mr. Keshe has been doing is doing the same thing, but coming at it from the higher plasma state and creating this plasma state that is in a matter state that can be measured by the nuclear authorities. Would that be correct?
Yes, exactly. And again, also, I think there's also the element of the intent as well, which from the beginning, Mr. Keshe would say before making your cups to pray or have an intention, make an intention as to why you're doing it. And that way, that intention will be imprinted in the cup, in the result, the end result. So I think all of these things are all they correlate very well to one another. And yes, I think when he was producing that material, I think it was producing, in my understanding, he was producing the fields, and then the fields, once the conditions are correct, can the fields of the plasma of whatever he was making, once the conditions are created, can manifest in the material sense. And this is what my understanding is.
So Ike, do you have anything to add?
No, just some all the same along the same thinking.
Okay, well, that's excellent. All right. Okay, right now, what I'd like to do is, does anyone have any other questions? I know what I have to do. I think I figured it out, Elias. Let me see if I can get this done. Okay, so. Okay, that part works. So. Elias, were you able to find the peace treaty?
I have it ready. You want it? You want me to share?
Would you please share? And how's your voice? Would you be able to read it?
Yes, I can read it. Yeah. Just give me a second here. All right. Is this visible?
Beautiful, I see it.
World Peace Treaty. We, as citizens of the earth, from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We, shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this, we, all agree and swear with my nation, territory, council, religion, city, town, body, and soul. After signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator.
Thank you very much. So this is the important thing that we have to understand, because that is the essence of the purpose of what we're doing. So in fact, not only with our intention, but in combination with the ethos of fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. So in other words, our scheme has to be enlarged. So on that note, I would like to bring attention to what we talked about on the 529th Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And does anyone have any comments before we go to that video? Okay, I'm going to try and do this then. Let's see if I can share the screen. And we're going to do this. So we had a very interesting thing happen on Thursday. Ike, are you going to be available maybe to do some reading after the video?
Sure.
Oh man, terrific. Okay, well, get your tonsils ready, and in about 13 minutes, we'll get to you. So let's see if we can get this thing going. And we begin.
Malcolm in YouTube has a question. Mr. Keshe, regarding soul and animals, Egyptian Dr. Abraham Karim mentioned the animals perceive both worlds and sometimes foretell what's to come. Do they know when they are going to die or transmute?
We all know. We all know. It's just that we try to ignore it or say, oh, it's not going to happen. except accident, even accidents, some of it is said to be, well, they're part of the whole scene. But as a human life and normal natural life, our body knows when it's about to go, when what it's about to do, and how little it needs to take before it goes. We are all aware, without the shadow of a doubt. It's just that we call it the old age and cannot walk, cannot do this. It's just all preparing, gradually cutting the legs and arms off that, just get me enough the last bit that I charge up to what I need to go. And no fountain of youth can. And always said, if you know you're not a destiny, but you have to do something. It goes step by step, and it's a process we all know. It's not just the animals. The understanding of totality is, and how it is, and how our brain is done to identify the strength of the field of the soul. The more it clocked up, the more separation with the what do you call it, the soul of physicality, the more bits are stuck. There's a new research which has come out. It's amazing, this research, and it's opened up a new dimension, and even for us to be able to explain the work of the plasma. The scientists, in trying to do another research, they have in a way pondered on a new discovery which was never known, and now I'm sure billions of dollars will go into this research. One of the research scientists has been trying to look at the behavior of the brain during the sleep physically. We've never done that. They build a system, it's like a telescope, but you look inside the brain live. There's a lot of gadgets to it. But in a way, the way you go to a dentist, they sit you up, but you go to sleep sitting up, upright. And they have developed this telescope which looks in the brain, actually exactly live. And what they discovered is that they want to know, they wanted to see the protein which produces Alzheimer's. They were looking for that, but they just fell on this new discovery. And he explains a lot of things. That our brain carries a liquid in it that our brain sits. And we say our brain has no veins. If you cut the brain is wide, you don't see any blood, so it doesn't bleed. But there always was we ignored it because we could not understand it, how this thing works, how this thing gets rid of its bits, and how we create a brain cancer and the rest of it. Now we understand a little bit of it, but it's fascinating what they found out. At the moment when you go to sleep, which we call the circulation of the blood changes, becomes weaker, even though it creates that's a weakening of the magnetic field of the blood. Not only allows the soul to be more freely expanding out, and now we understand, and we're implementing this into work of the Keshe Foundation with a new headset, that as you fall asleep, the liquid in the brain, in the half which is not working, is supposed to be on repairs, like opening a sink at the bottom of a bath, loses all its liquid. It goes literally dry. And the brain cells literally shrink, like they've been inflamed in the liquid, like a balloon in the water. They shrink. And in that process of shrinking, as this liquid going through the brain down, like a sink. It washes all the energy, whatever the cell of the brain didn't need. Now we understand how brain cleanses itself, gets rid of it. And when you do not have enough liquid or rapid flow, bits gets stuck, and certain protein in that dry time is like a leech stick to the brain, and this protein start the process of the Alzheimer's or brain cancer and the rest. This research is amazing, how much information we gathered about this research, and I'm sure leading universities now will go for this to find out, because we never knew that our brain, literally like a balloon, deflates. All the veins become like sieve, and the liquid goes right through it, washes all the energy, all the surplus was not needed out. There are two questions now the world of science needs to answer is, where does this liquid go? Because they haven't managed to find out the sinkhole yet. And then it gets filled up with a fresh water till you sleep next time. Then we have understood with this research and others which are following in it, that how crucial sleep is. The sleep is not so crucial as you need to refresh your body, is how much your brain gets washed and cleans up its mess of the day work. And if you don't cover it, it takes to do this because it's done in a synchronized matter. If you don't get 6 hours of sleep, minimum to 8 hours, you get all the problems of emotional and everything else. And this has opened a lot of things in the work of the Keshe Foundation Research and Development. And we understand this change. And the point for us is that the shrinking off or washing off the brain, at which point is the best time to put the headphones on you. I noticed this a few weeks ago, in past 3-4 months. Many of the knowledge seekers who come on these sessions, they fall asleep. And in a way, we're hitting a dry land. There's no water in the brain. Depends on which part of it's mainly because we run our sessions, many Canadians and Americans are in their sleep phase. And we hear them snoring. And we put them on the silence. But some of these sessions goes for 6 or 8 hours. We start looking at the behavior of the Americans, because we always catch them asleep. And some Europeans fall asleep too. But how much the soul is affected or behave during the dry time and the wet time. And how much and what kind of dreams become to reality for these people in that time. If it's the 4-hour session, we're looking for that 4 hours. Are they in the middle of 2 hours? Is when it's the absolute minimum liquid in the brain. And with that, there's no interaction between the cells, because that liquid is a communicator, connector, or part of the system of the brain. And this research has risen a lot of interest for me to find the right time to put people in the machine the right way. And how much the intention of the emotion has to do with it. We are feeding you continuously with the fields. Does not matter if you're in Australia, in Pakistan, in America. But how can you tap into our system to take what you need from it? And how our system is set to tap into the universal circus. Which means, doesn't matter how much we can feed every living thing on this planet, and it still be that little bucket. Because We're just channeling the fields to you. You want energy for 2 tomatoes. I don't have any, but because I'm connected to the sunshine, that's where all the energy comes. It gets tapped in. I never lose. I never become 1 tomato. And still energy of 2 tomatoes in my system. And this is the way the new understanding of technology is taking shape. When is the most vulnerable? When there is no interaction between the liquid and the brain, is at the driest point that the soul rapidly expands. And is this why some of you click on and you're on it? Because you're so tired at the point and the brain has gone through drainage system. And is this why some of you, doesn't matter what we do, cannot get through you because that liquid is so thick. It doesn't matter how we do it, how we play with you. And have you learned minutes of sleep than 4 hours sleep? These are the things which will come up. Now we're developing system to handle this. It's actually in operation. Some of you in Sanya will go through this. Because it was interesting. This is why in the test, in what you call it, past few months, those of you who've been with us, we switched the microphone off, we switched the microphone on, and I've been trying to understand how many of your sleep time are there, if we can see the behavior of those, how they feel and how they behave, what they talk afterwards. It's very interesting. This new research which has come up it brings a lot of things into space technology clarified and how we can use it, when we can. When is the best time to get the transmutation done? When is the worst time to do it? Would you like to do this transmutation in tsunami when the brain is getting filled up with liquid and you're all over with the energy? It's very interesting science. We call it the day today. Thank you very much.
Wow. I found it to be quite a profound part of the presentation. Does anyone have any comments?
Can you hear me?
Hello, Randy.
It's been a wild day for audio here. I don't know what's going on. Is a part of a teaching that you need to listen to 3 or 4 times to really grasp the ramifications of what he is saying there. And you know, the old saying, what a thick-skulled person. There's a lot of relevance to what he is saying.
Well, one of the things I learned a long time ago was the notion of, well, not the notion, but the actual existence of water babies. And I didn't really understand it, and it was a novel concept for me, but apparently water babies are something that has to do with babies who have too much water on the brain. And then what had happened was that certain parts of their brain was not functioning properly as per the brain mapping that we were all used to. So, you know, let's say if you had the motor skills of moving your left hand, that would be in a certain part of the brain. And there were many scientists who were trying to map the brain, but you know, when you lost that kind of capability, and then you had to train yourself to restore that capability, we found that it was possible to be done, except that mapping wise, it was in a different part of the brain. And so the reason that subject came up was because we're all of the belief So we've been taught anyway that we're only using about 15% of our brain. And like everything else, if you don't use it, you lose it. So the fact of the matter is, the brain doesn't atrophy in the way that, say, a muscle would atrophy if you don't use it. As part of my so-called coaching career, one of the things that we learned was that we could lose the fitness within 2 weeks. So if a player went on holidays for more than 2 weeks, he basically came in unfit. So it was only 2 weeks, but in that period of time, there was that much deterioration. Well, when you say the deterioration, it wasn't as if he was atrophied totally. He wasn't incapacitated. He was just not fit to the high level that is required for that athletic endeavor. But he could regain that fitness by working it. Well, that's exactly the same thing the water babies did. They regained their fitness, their mental fitness, but it was not in the same position within the brain as per the brain map. And so the important point there was that we must certainly be using 100% of our brain, because for most of our life, it's all there. And, when we look at the onset of things like Alzheimer's, they're actually, doctors are seeing an atrophy of the brain. So not just a lack of fitness, but an actual shrinking of the brain. And so I was quite shocked personally to hear this excerpt and discussing this newfound understanding, because there is no blood in the brain. The blood cells go around the brain. It encases the brain. It's unlike in the body where the blood vessels go through the body. So the brain itself doesn't bleed. So, but the other interesting component is that the brain food is actually calcium. And calcium is an important element, not only in the brain, but in all the cells of the body. And the confounding thing with calcium is that it's available in a physical state, which in that physical state, like calcium carbonate, is not soluble. So if we see the calcium in the fluid, it is in suspension. And yet there is calcium carbonate GANS, where the calcium is part of the fluid. It isn't in suspension, it's diluted in there. And so this is a very novel thing. But there is an intermediate point, and then we have calcium in our bones, of course, but we also have cartilage. And the cartilage has calcium, but it isn't rigid like the bones, and it isn't fluid like the calcium carbonate GANS. So there's a third element. So it's kind of flexible and spongy as well. So these are all different characteristics of calcium. And then to find out that there's brain food consisting of calcium, and you say, well, it's not bone because the skull is around the brain. It's not, cartilage like you have in your nose. And it's not fluid because the definition of a water baby is having too much fluid on the brain. But apparently it is. So if it's that fluid, is it a physical fluid or is it a plasmatic fluid? And so I think we have a unique characteristic here where it has a duality in it. So that if in the physicality the brain is flushed, which is kind of a good thing, isn't it? Because if you've ever had kind of a foggy brain and you say, well, you know, I just want to step back and clear my head. You've heard that expression. And then you come back and revisit and you find that, you know, your whole perspective and understanding and coherence is improved. So that flushing could be exactly that. First of all, there could be a flushing, or now there's the implication that maybe you just weren't ready, which is the way you are when, you know, when you suddenly get awoken and you're kind of groggy. And why are you groggy? You know, are you still hungover from the day before, or are you in the middle of this flushing exercise? This really throws up a lot of different ideas forward, but it really ties into our sleep patterns, and it really ties into our transmutation patterns, because that's what we're doing when we go to sleep. And so the discussion as to what happens to our body while we go to sleep, well, obviously our body's resting in bed, and the prime reason for it to rest in bed is to get some rest. But is that really the case? And if our soul is leaving for the evening, is it leaving the brain behind as well? And so that must be the case, because we see from our research with respect to comas, the doctors are basically saying, well, the physicality is alive, but the patient is brain dead. Is it just an extended sleep period? Is it a confrontation between the desire of the soul and the desire of the soul of physicality? And is the soul of physicality caught between two worlds, that of the plasma matter and that of the physicality matter? So this opens up a whole new dialogue. And I think this is very, very exciting, because so many times science is saying, well, we don't know what the answer is, and we don't know where to look. But if this now is the case, then we do know where to look, because we're starting to see the results. And as we start to see the results, our knowledge improves. And so I think we can understand the development that is coming at this rapid pace with the universal body enhancement spaceship units, because that's exactly what's going on in there as well. So does anyone want to put forward any comments on that?
Hello, Alex.
Hello.
I sent to you, I don't know if you have time, but I sent to a part of an extract from the teaching 250 that Mr. Keshe explained more about the dreams and the sleeping time. And I think that will be interesting to add of this knowledge.
Is this a video?
Yes, 14 minutes. I don't know if you have time, but
Well, okay. So Claudia, that is very good. The question that I have is, what time is it right now? It's okay, here it's 3:29, and the Brazil intention meeting starts in an hour and a half.
yes.
And we were thinking to close up the session today a little bit earlier, so that people could get a break, and then also
No problem. We can
Hold on a
show
second.
next Sunday.
What is the plans of the Brazilian community? How do you see the timing going?
The time is 1 hour and a half exactly. So this will be changed.
Okay, so it would be a good idea to join that meeting with the intention.
Yeah,
Would you?
we'll
Yeah?
we'll be there. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, well, so let's pull that video, save that for next week. Would that be okay? And
Yes, no problem.
okay,
Have
excellent.
much knowledge. I think that's very interesting to see this and the other one together. So,
I
and about the
totally,
liquid, I want to add,
yes,
we need the liquid, the water, to grow inside of the womb of the mother,
mm-hmm,
and we need water for everything in our body to do the things, the work of the cells, and we need the water. I don't know about the transmutation, what the water is inside. This is a mystery for me, because Mr. Keshe is working only with the plasma fields in our ears, between our ears, and we have the liquid inside of our brain, okay, but in space we don't have water, only into the planet, I think, in my understanding. So in this planet is very much needed water for everything, for the plants, for our whole life. And about the liquid inside of the brain, when you're born, we have to have exactly the volume in the third ventricle, fourth ventricle, and in our spine. Because if you have more, it's bad. You have low. Can I say in English? Loss? No.
blood,
Have you more? It's bad. If you have a low, it's bad too. So you have to be like perfection in the volume of this liquid.
right,
Because you have hydrocephaly, you have to drain, because to be okay with children,
right,
and the liquid inside of the womb of the mother, it's bad too if you have high or low. You have to drain too, or you have to born. Sorry,
oh no, you're doing great.
I want to explain, but I don't know the words, all the words. So
No, but I think, Claudia, let me just paraphrase what you said, and then you tell me if I'm on the right track here.
okay.
If when we go to sleep and the soul goes traveling, leaves the body behind, it is at that point that the brain is flushing, and so it's depleted of water. So it would be in that minimalistic level that you were referring to. So then you're saying, well, that's not good for the physicality. Well, that's correct, but that is good for the soul. And then if we uh, wake up refreshed, and that is because the brain is flushed with the water, and so it's re-energized, and so that is also good. The problem that Mr. Keshe has discovered is that from a physical side, we can't communicate with the brain if it's flushed. We can only do that if it's flooded with the water in its proper proportions. And then, as you say, if there's too much water, then that causes another problem, as I've referred to with respect to water babies. But the point is that it's when the brain has the water that we can impact it from the physical side, which is what the enhancement units are doing.
Mhm.
So
But this video that I sent to you is 4 hours from the one side and 4 hours from the other side.
right.
And
Which is the
if
same
you
with the
only
lung.
sleep 4 hours, it's not good. Because you don't rest the other side of the hemisphere of the brain.
See, that's a very important point, and I don't think the majority of us get that luxury.
This video that I sent, that's why we have to see both together, because I think it's add the information each other.
Oh, yes, for sure. Are you getting 8 hours sleep?
I didn't realize this information because I sleep 8 hours all the time. And Mr. Keshe said it's very important to break this because you don't increase your expansion of the knowledge in the soul. You have to wake up in 4 hours and sleep for more 4 hours. That's what I understood. And change the times. If you always sleep 11 o'clock, you have to change this because it's like a constant movement and constant liquid inside of your brain, so you don't expand. So that Mr. Keshe said, try to move this, try to change these times and you sleep, wake up sometimes. That's your brain will change too. That's it. Thank you so much.
Well, what you've just explained is something that I was taught a long time ago, and that's exactly that. You know, a session of 4 hours is very good, and that maybe take a break, and the point being that it would be better to have 2 sessions of 4 hours than one session of 8 hours. So you're saying that is the better way?
Can you repeat, Alex? I didn't understand it so well.
To get say 8 hour sessions with 8 hour session within one day, it is better to have 2 4 hour sessions than to have one continuous 8 hour session.
Yes. He said that's why you wake up and go to the bathroom, you know, and come to again to sleep. That's why you do like a little movements. You not to wake up and with the lights and conversations, not like that. It's only little movements. Wake up and go to the bathroom and go to sleep again. That's change the hemisphere that will rest and have the liquids thinner the other side, and change the body that will rest, because it's opposite. The hemisphere direct right is the left part of our body, it's opposite.
Right. The comment that I want to make is that our lifestyle is not in most cases allowing.
It's not good.
Yeah.
No, because it's like a routine, you know. my day life is like a routine. It's not so good to extend.
Well, I can tell you my life is not very routine because Sanya is 12 hours ahead and Europe is 6 hours ahead, or right now it's 5 hours. But anyway, it's and you know, we adjusted our clocks 2 weeks ago, and I'm frankly still having trouble even just with the 1 hour adjustment. So I think this is much more challenging than you know, on face value here. And then, of course, the other problem, and I ran into this problem with the family, was that, you know, everybody's on a different shift. You know, some working night shift, some working day shift, and so there's always some kind of disruption. And and how that is disrupting the flow, if you will, of everything. So this becomes a challenge in how we can incorporate that into our life. And I think we're just at the beginning of the discussion, in my opinion. And I think um, it's a great discussion, and it's vital, in other words, really, for our health and well-being. You can imagine that people who are living under extreme stress, how much that stress gets compounded when they, suffer from, well, we know sleep deprivation causes suffering. So, but this kind of explains how significant that effect is. Conversely, if we were to remedy that, we could see how beneficial that would be as well. So I think this is a wonderful topic, and I think all of us need to explore it even more. So Claudia, thank you so much for bringing up the subject. I really appreciate it, and I thank you for your continued presence here and everything that you're doing in so many ways. I don't think we give as much acknowledgement to the significant contributions that you're making. I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me, and we are growing together. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to do a presentation today, and I'm really a little bit concerned about the time, but I would like to, Ike, are you ready to go? If we can do another session, perhaps?
Yes, yes.
Okay, my friend. Let's see what we come up with. You ready to go? Anytime.
Okay, hang
You didn't turn your microphone off, did you? You did turn your microphone off.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now, Ike.
Sorry. So it goes. Gradually, it's also becoming clear that this senior conference wasn't going to be about only seeking things physically, but about studying the process of working at the soul level. We will be protagonists of this conference and not just go there as spectators for KF show something to us, and through our own souls. With the help of the system in Sanya, we could even be able to manifest a UFO at the conference hall. This is the excerpt from the transcript of 523 KSW. The senior conference in China is in full swing, and many of you have already registered for it. It will be one of the most amazing conferences. Some KS said, show something and we will come. We are not a circus. Like in Manchester and London, we will bring systems for you to test. So you are the exhibit, not us. Your soul is. We just bring the facilities for you to test your soul. The magic show is you, not us. The development of the
Technology.
technology is so advanced. What happens if you put a number of these souls into a star formation? You are looking for UFOs that have dynamic reactors. Now you understand why we see spaceships without reactors in the physical dimension, I believe.
Yes.
This will be the part of the teachings to come. You will see the beginning of it in Sanya and the development of the what's the P?
Oh, the development of plasma.
Of plasma in the beautiful city of Tehran, where we will really show what this game is about and how things will go. From the land of Mitra, we will take it across to the world for the world leaders to understand that they have no power anymore. I missed my part.
You missed it?
Where is it? You moved it and sorry.
I can continue if I'm.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry, I missed where.
Go ahead, Randy. Give it a shot.
To understand that they have no power anymore, because the power sits within the soul of each of us, and it will dictate how it will be. It will be amazing to see how many of you will be elected by your soul to serve, and how many will try to cheat on the ballot box to get their physicality into one of those. Next slide.
Randy, we missed half your presentation. Hey, we have to do something about that microphone.
Yep. Okay. I can try to fix that after. Let's continue. Someone else can take over. Sorry, guys.
Good try. Ike, do you have this page?
Yes. Next slide.
You want to go to the next slide?
Yes. Continue.
Okay, how about this one?
Over the next few months, with what we have physically delivered, I will bring you the most amazing sensations you have ever known. You won't be able to explain it in the words of man, but you will feel it in the essence of emotions of your soul. Then, the next time anybody says something about Keshe Foundation, you say to them, here, put on these headphones and then tell me if you are as crazy as me, or have we all learned how to tap into the universal system and be part of, into the universe and be part of. Gradually, we will start teaching you how to use some of the universal fields to use transmutation in your life. For this, you need to understand your soul and the central energy of your existence. I hope many of you will experience this. We will bring some systems with us to Sanya. For those of you who want to see your own soul's magic, you can compare the difference between this and what we did in Manchester and London. I still invite you all to join us in Sanya because I think it will be a life changer for a lot of you.
Definitely. Thank you, Ike, so much. Really appreciate your
Sorry, next time I will do better. The screens are small here.
You know, you need to go to Texas. Everything is big in Texas, eh? You know, when you look at this statue here and you see the size of the people and how big the statue is, it just goes to show you when people think in larger schemes. It's really amazing.
And who built the statue?
Wow. It wouldn't have been done by one person, I'm pretty sure. So,
This is China, right?
yes, it is. This is Sanya.
Wow, senior.
Here, if you look at this slide here, you can see at the bottom of the golden ring, you see people standing there. And you can see the proportion of the people compared to the size of the statue. It's truly amazing. So it just goes to show you that, you know, when you are an international traveler and you see how other people do things, you find that that just adds to your knowledge. So it doesn't diminish your knowledge, it adds to your knowledge. And this is one of the reasons I'm seeing so many people coming in here with, you know, we've got Joseph from Germany and Jefferson from Brazil and then Micah from the left coast. And
That statue is 108 meters or about 354 feet high. Thank you, Claudia, for that information.
154 feet. Wow. That's amazing. There we go. So, does anyone ever else have some comments they'd like to add? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you would allow me, I'm going to see if I can get this presentation done in a reasonable time. And are we good with that? What do you think, Elias? Randy, are we good?
I'm good. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. Everybody says, let's go. Okay, so we have to do the disclaimer one more time. Okay, just here. I'll do this. See if this, oh, didn't do it right. Sorry, let me try it again. Uh-oh. No way, I messed it up. Sorry, everybody, and we'll try it one more time. We all have lots of skills to learn. And we can clearly see that, you know, when we're doing things in the physicality, we are very limited.
Alex, I can do the disclaimer and then you just switch back to your system. Is that okay?
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Okay, here we go.
I hit the wrong button. Yeah, go ahead.
The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. We are going to see if we can get this process going. This is the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting of 2024, and we are on the Sanya conference weekend. And as we see that we've been talking today about how important this conference is because it is a watershed moment. And the Brazilian community has put forward a session where we're using the intentions of all the participants. And this has been going on since Friday night and Saturday night, and then we'll carry on tonight as well. And then there'll be another session tomorrow. And I just want to let everybody know that this is going to be coming on, and the effects are absolutely amazing. So I want to thank the Brazilian community for doing this, and I also want to thank the participation, not only of the Brazilian community, but all the other members on this panel who make this conference so very, very strong. There's been a lot of information coming on Thursday's teaching, powerful sessions from the Brazilian teaching on Friday night. And we're trying to do the same thing over here in our efforts, because this is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science. We are discussing advanced transmission. And the subject today is luster. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It is March the 17th of 2024, and this is the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So what we're seeing as we're getting into this advanced transmission, that we're really trying to help new knowledge seekers from getting foothold on the basic knowledge. And although it says advanced, it is not advanced. It's advanced in terms of what we've been discussing on a basic basis for over 10 years now. And for the majority of knowledge seekers, and I say this all the time, refreshing, review, repeat is all important as we all try and learn the proper terminology so that we can communicate and communicate with meaning, because the words have different meanings all the time. And we are students at this point in time, but we also need to become teachers, and we need to switch between one and the other all the time, because we're only representing a small percentage of the population, and everyone needs to know this, because all of us were born to this planet, and all of us need to know why we're here, what we're doing, and what matters. And so we get kind of blinded by what we call luster, and this is contributing to our hesitancy to understand how many points do we have to cover, how many points do we have to teach, how many times do we have to do this, and how much time do we have to do this. So we have to understand that when we're dealing from the physical side, we're dealing with the lowest energy state. And so when we came here, we were looking at walking in the physicality, and then we discovered that rolling is faster. But if we get on the horse walking is faster. But everything is point by point or step by step. And how many steps and how many cycles and how many points do we have to make until we get it? Well, the books by Marantava Keshe, as in book number 1, The Universal Order of Creation of Matter, goes to the heart of the matter, if you will, with the combination of matter, dark matter, and antimatter. And so when we understand how these things are created, then we understand how we are created. But when you look at the book number 2, The Structure of the Light, and you see that between one matter and another matter, there is a connection. And doesn't that make sense? Because if we are here, where do we come from? And if we're leaving, where are we going? And what is the connection? And how did we manifest into this physicality? So when we look at book number 3, The Origin of the Universe, and we see that one manifested into 2. And one we refer to as a sister universe, and one is referred to as our man's universe. And it's still the lowest energy state. It's still the smallest field. And so how do we do all this? So we have been doing the Transmutation Preparation Series, which is a series going through 6 months. And this March will be the 3rd session. And it'll be coming up after the Sangha conference on March 29th. So please all be welcome to join in the training, because this is what we have to do. We have to become part of the understanding how we are one planet, one nation, one race, and for justice and world peace. And that's what it's really all about. And we try to get this message across for 317 sessions, because we're all searching for outer space, and we find to get to that point on the plasma highway, which takes us to the little pie in the sky and beyond. And the problem has been the limitations of science and the small schemes that we have. And we see that little tiny red dot in the bottom right-hand corner. We find that, yeah, that's our little world, but there's a whole big world out there. And, you know, the way we're going to get there is going to be on the plasma highway. And that's not where we are. We are on the transmission highway. We are on the lowest energy state. And this is why we're talking about this, because we have to understand that the speed of light, which is the fastest transmission, is what we've been taught. And now we see that we're questioning this because we don't know if that is true. And if that is true, then when we look at the size of the universe compared to that little tiny red dot that we call our tiny perfect world, then that is massive, massive in size. And so if to get to that size, we have to go at the speed of light. And so if you go at the speed of light, then you're going to have to be as big as the universe. And so this is one of the reasons we can't go as fast as the speed of light. But you know what? The speed of light can go as fast as the speed of light. And then the next question really is, what is beyond what we see? And is what we see really what is there, or is there something else? And so we question all this. And it comes down to the basic understanding. And we say this every week because this is the most important thing in understanding the creation of the universe. The universe is created because it exists from energy. And that energy is always in motion. And the key fact about the energy in motion is that it's always in motion. And so it's always positive. And so to understand which direction that motion is going, we give it a charge. And if it's going somewhere or coming from somewhere, that means it has to work in combination. So the first thing we see in the creation of matters is how three energy levels come together, and we call them matter, dark matter, and antimatter, and they come together as a creation of one matter. But then, as we say, it came together from somewhere, and then it has to go somewhere, and it has to be then in combination with something else, another matter. And now we can question is, how do we transmit that energy? And if we are in the physical state, then that is the lowest energy state. And that's what we did in the cups of life. We created the GANS material by applying physical principles of physics. And yet all of us created different cups of life, and with varying success, because there's something else that's at play here. And that's the inner space that we have within our core space, which is reflecting our emotional strength. But is it reflecting our emotional strength, or is it exhibiting our emotional strength? And so when we look at this radiance manifestation, is that what we mean by luster? Is, when we look at this GANS radiation, which we actually can't see because it's non-visible. What we can see is the GANS, the CO2 GANS, and the calcium carbonate GANS, and the zinc and copper GANS. And we can also see the water GANS and the amino acid GANS. But they all have a different texture, a different kind of message. And so we've seen that in terms of three dimensions, we're talking about transmission, which is rotation, and transition, which affects the y-axis polarity, and the transmutation, which is the field strength. But when we see that these are all the key dimensions of transmission, that we cannot have the full medium that we need to facilitate transmission without the combination of the X, Y, and Z axis, which is exactly the way the book number 1 has shown the coming together of the matter, dark matter, and antimatter. So this becomes the medium. This is not the message. And so when we look at luster and exactly what it means, in terms of geology, this is a way of describing the surface of any particular type of mineral, and how it reflects light differently from other minerals. So this helps us to tell minerals apart. So different kinds of minerals differ in their luster. So iron, for instance, is described as having a metallic luster. Glassy materials have a vitreous luster. Things such as opal look resinous, and the lusters of yet others are described as being either pearly or silky or dull, like earth. Earth is dull. Well, in nuclear science, luster is based on the crystalline formation. And we talked about nearness and proximity because luster is based on that. And it's due to the path link and susceptibility. And so we've gone into the detail to discuss all these things because these are the physical attributes of luster. And they are a reflection of the crystalline formation. Well, we all know that hydrogen is a gas and is a chemical element. And how can it have a crystalline formation? And so we see that there are different types of crystalline formations, but then we also see that hydrogen itself has a kind of a glow in its plasma state, a purple glow in its plasma state. Is that the luster? Well, when we review what we've seen with Dino Crespidon, who was a famous Brazilian mathematician, and his statement was rather bold because he said God is a set of mutually perpendicular lines of force oscillating upon themselves. So when we look at the basic square and we see the relationship of the x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. And if we follow a path from one corner to the other corner, in order to not cross over the paths and follow the edges of the cube, we find that there are different paths. So the yellow path, the orange path, and the red path are different. And what's interesting is that if they flip, then they have a different appearance. So they're asymmetric in their nature. And then there's this other chemical we know as oxygen. And it is in a cubic form. So when we take the hydrogen in its hexagonal form, and we take the oxygen in its cubic form, then we create water. But as we found that if we slightly rotate the cubic form, it becomes a hexagonal form. So this becomes our point of view. But we find that oxygen and hydrogen have an affinity. And so the natural solvent that we have is water. It's a universal solvent. And we find that there is a physical water and there's a plasmatic water. And we find that if we take a bottle of water and we agitate it vigorously for about 20 seconds, 25 seconds, it creates a charge. It has a higher energy. It actually becomes plasmatic. And so we can drink that. We also find that if we add the water to the GANS and let the GANS settle, and we just take the water from the top, and we can drink that, and we can get new types of energy. So this becomes fundamental to our existence. So when we look at the cubes, however, there are different types of cubes, what we call closed-packed, body-centered, face-centered, distorted cubes, and diamond cubes. So these are all part of the cubic families. And so when we look at crystalline structures, and we see that there are also other types of structures, which we're not going to go into detail at this point, but they're orthorhombic structures or rhombohedral structures. And, we seem to discuss as if they were primitive hexagonals or primitive cubic, as in hydrogen and oxygen. And then we have more structures which are, shall we say, more stable. And so when we look at the periodic table, and if we look at it in the structure of crystalline forms, as opposed to the tables that we've been looking at, which basically dealt with mass, and we can see that the mass is still there and it's a numeric sequence. And we see the nomenclature for each of the elements. And we see by the color how it's associated with the crystalline structure. And so we get another pattern that we have here. And we see that for a lot of the table, we have body-centered cubic structures. But then we have certain elements that are really, really kind of different, such as the green structures, which are orthorhombic structures. And then, of course, they're still cubic, but there's a lot of face-centered cubic right in the middle of the periodic table of elements. So what is very interesting is that on the left-hand side, elements that we're familiar with, like potassium, sodium, magnesium, and calcium, they're body-centered cubic. Whereas the hydrogen is in its primitive hexagonal state. And then when we look at the right side, we find that they are face-centered cubic. And so this becomes very important because this on the right side aligns with helium and with what we call the inert gases. But we already know that energy is always in motion, so they're not inert. The point being, as we talked about before, when we look at the principal universal line magnetical fields, that the center point is the hottest point, and in the extreme diminishes in terms of the temperature. But when we look at the GANS connection, we find that when we flatten the fields, we create this shimmering, the same kind of shimmering that you see on a hot summer day as you're driving down an asphalt road. And in the distance, the dullness of the asphalt is replaced with kind of a shininess. And that's what it is, it's the flatness. And so if we take the shimmering flatness and apply it to this vastness of outer space, and we come to a real anomaly here, because we find that if the energy is traveling at the speed of light, and in the straightaway, it can travel, but then it comes to a sharp turn at the end. And if we look at Formula One racing, and when we look at how they approach hairpin turns, we find that the speed has to slow down, the corner has to be navigated, and then the speed has to be picked up again. Well, that's how physicality works. But that's not how plasma works. Because despite the flattening, the speed of light is constant. So therefore, as the speed of light approaches the corner, it doesn't slow down. It has to keep the same speed. So the question then becomes, how does it navigate that corner? So is that the point where we may be having a convergence of energy, of other forces coming together? And if they are coming together, is there something that's beyond? And if they're coming together beyond the way they're coming together within, then they would both be of the same charge, and they would repel each other, which would facilitate the navigation around that corner. And this becomes very important when we're discussing this shimmering flatness, because there are three ways it can go. It can go around the corner in a straight line, or it can go in a loop-de-loop, or it can be deflected by the energy coming from the outside. And so, in other words, maybe it's not as sharp a turn as we think it is. Maybe it has an affinity for exchanging energy with something else due to the shimmering flatness. So when we look at these elements on the periodic table of elements that are most relevant to us, we just contract the table a little bit smaller, and we look at the important things like carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen. Those are part of the amino acids. And then we see that as organic beings, we are carbon-based, but the earth is silicon-based. And then we see that in the oxygen family, sulfur is part of that family. And then on the extreme left, we have our favorites, copper, zinc, and iron. And then we move to the right, the whole family of mediums: sodium, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. And so we want to discuss those things because they're all in the atmosphere, and yet we can see through the atmosphere. And so the atmosphere is transparent. But In the daytime, we can't see through the atmosphere to see the stars. We can only see it at night. So it's not really transparent, it's just translucent, which means it's illuminated. It is shining, it is bright. And we can see the clouds and the rain and the wind as it's manifested through the clouds as it moves. And we all look through windows, which are also transparent. And these windows are made with silicone, which is not very transparent. That's part of the earth. Can you see through the earth? So the earth is made of silicone. And as you can see, it has a blue-gray metallic luster. That's not the way Earth looks like the way I envision it. And then there are other elements. Let's say, for instance, iodine is very important. It's considered semi-lustrous. What about boron? Boron is a lustrous metalloid, but it's different in its crystalline form. It's brittle and it's darker. And here is silver. It is really lustrous. In fact, it has the highest electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and reflectivity of any metal. And of course, there's gold. We really like gold. It is very lustrous. It's very beautiful and very shiny. And isn't it interesting how it gets even shinier when we polish it? But we look at calcium and it's kind of metallic, but what it has is a dark oxide nitride layer when it's exposed to air. Calcium, the way I understand it, as part of the bone structure, or is calcium carbonate in liquid, in suspension, is white. And potassium, well, we use potassium also to make GANs, and it doesn't look silvery white and as a metal, and yet it's soft enough to be cut with a knife. And here, magnesium, this is the kind of the interstitial fluid, or shall we say, the equivalent to blood in plants, and it is really shiny. Then, of course, there's sodium. We know that sodium was a metal. It has a silvery white. But because it's a highly reactive metal, we need to take care of it. It's highly flammable. But as you can see, it has a grain and it has luster. Not really bright, but zinc is much more shiny. And as you can see in the cube there, how shiny it can get. And this is part of our emotion. Are we emotionally shiny? What happens when someone comes to the party and they're the life of the party? You say they have a glow. Excuse me. Does that glow come from the fact that maybe they're drunk? They're alcoholic? Or is that glow because their soul is glowing and it's causing a shininess of their face? And what does that mean exactly? And then there's copper. Copper is part of our physicality, and it's pretty shiny. And here's nickel. It's another silvery white, lustrous metal. Has a slight golden tinge. And it too, you see by the cube, is actually very, very shiny. And nickel is very important. In Canada, it's worth 5 cents. But iron is a chemical element, and it is the most common element on Earth. Shall we say, by mass. And it forms much of the Earth's outer and inner core. And then we have a really shiny metal, it's mercury. And at room temperature, it is liquid. It's a fluid metal. Interesting. And we put that in our mouth. As an amalgam, yes. And then, of course, I brought in titanium because it's a very lustrous transition metal with a silver color. But we see titanium quite often, and it's white, as in a titanium dioxide. And then there's nitrogen, which it's very hard to see because it's in the atmosphere. It's completely transparent. But nitrogen becomes a liquid at a very cold temperature, much colder than our normal environment. And then our favorite, carbon. And carbon, of course, is black, except that when it's in a diamond form, it's transparent. We can see through it just like glass. And it's translucent and it's shiny. And then if it gets into our air, well, it becomes invisible. So all of these elements are bound together. And we have adopted this kind of binding, and it's necessary to do this to maintain our physicality. But we have overextended that to bind at the expense of others. And this is the confounding thing, because the others also have to do an energy binding to be self-serving. So, imagine, for instance, if, there was a competition between the gold and the silver, and if you're binding that energy together, there seems to be a competition. And so, depending on the circumstance, the gold might win, or in a different circumstances, the silver might win. But that's not the only two elements that are involved. There are other elements that as we've just described. And so all of these come together with the basic forms of transmission, I'm sorry, x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis, where the x-axis is the rotation of the planet, the y-axis is the polarity, and the z-axis is the field strength, which gives us the roundness and the spherical structure of our Earth. But as we know, the Earth is not perfectly round, it's kind of flattened at the top and the bottom. And so with this flattening, it kind of changes the nature. So what that means is that if we take the center point of the Earth, wherever that is, and if we could draw a line to the outer edge of the Earth physical, then if we did that at the equator, we would find that that line would be longer than it would be if we drew that line to the poles. So in other words, the diameter across the pole or along the pole from the north to the south is shorter than the diameter along the equator. And yet the Earth is gravitational in both directions. So this discrepancy is what creates the uniqueness of the various things that are interacted with these planes by axis of transmission. And then we take these forces that come together from the universe, and they come together and they create the two dimensions that we start with, the x-axis and the y-axis. And it's two forces that came together to begin, and then two more come together to continue, and then more come together and more come together, but they don't all come together from the same location, because first of all, they're not the same, and second of all, they don't come from the same direction, and third, the earth is moving. So what came down one path maybe misses the earth completely, maybe an hour later. And so in order to capture this field, we find that we have to have the x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis transmission come together. And as it comes together, we find that we're still moving, because energy is always in motion. And so we try to figure out, well, what causes the difference in that position? And so we've seen that, well, the transmission is always a two-way street, because we have at least two dimensions and a two-way street on each dimension. So each dimension has two directions, but you know, we have different sizes and we have different variables, and we can have more than one on each lane, and we can have more lanes. So there's a lot going on, and all of this has to do with the charge, which is the energy in motion, which the energy is positive, but the charge, the direction of flow, where we see there's the negative giving and the positive taking. So we see that the energy can be flowing or binding. So we see how energy comes binding together in the creation of the elements, and how they create their crystalline structure, and each of them has a unique crystalline structure. And so this becomes the point as we discuss. So a definite portion of matter occupies a definite part of space at a definite moment in time. And since that moment in time is changing, and that part of space is changing, because the energy is always in motion, and the matter, therefore, is in motion as well. And then we find, because of the motion, first of all, the energy cannot be one and the same, which constitutes a charge at two adjacent increments of time, because it keeps moving, so it's not the same energy. So the energy is moving, the source of the energy is moving, the matter that is derived from the manifestation of the energy is moving. And so we see that the embodiment of the principles of flow and connection are determined by energy in motion. And so it is always in motion. So the question is, what causes that motion? And so we find that in terms of physicality, we have our basic transmission, and it's perpendicular to the ground, and it's spinning. And so this gives us the x-axis transmission, the y-axis transmission, and the z-axis transmission. And we spin along. And the reason we spin along is because that energy is exchanging energy from other sources. And so this becomes part of our embodiment. And so we see that because of our versatility and variety, we're actually very undependable. And we're undependable in three dimensions. But we're all on Earth, and Earth is the common denominator. So the Earth is more dependable. But the Earth is not the only planet. It is part of a cycle. And so we find that these cycles are Maghrab dependent. And we say that because there's another planet, Mars, for instance, and it's on a different cycle. And so since cycles are representative of frequency, we find that the frequency of cycles are also Maghrab dependent. So the frequency of the Earth year is different from the frequency of the Mars year. And so the containment of Mars is different from the containment of Earth. And so the containment is Maghrab dependent as well. So this manifestation is always based on nearness and proximity. And there's a filtering process of the coexistence. And so this filtering process has to do with the absorption and emission of energy, and also with the reflection. And so when you look at the luster, that indicates the reflective capability, and it also indicates the nature of the material. And so that's fine for the physicality. But when we look at the differences and we see the overlapping transmission that we have that is going from, say, underwater or on the land where we have ships and cars, and then if we go above, we have airplanes, and higher still, we go have warplanes because they go faster. And then higher still are satellites because they go faster. And then there's that zone in between where we have the souls that are communicating with the peace dome on this planet. And so there's a relationship that goes beyond the magnetosphere, which is magnetical. And there's a relationship that goes to the core of the planet, which is gravitational. And so we find that purity is very important, very, very important, because when we define purity, and when we look at the periodic table of elements and we see the luster, we can determine what kind of contaminants are there. And so we've noted that there's also oxidation, which affects the purity. And so this oxidation happens because of an atmospheric combination, but also, we see that certain elements can be in a gaseous state, some can be in a liquid state, some can be in a solid state, and some, as the temperature goes down, still remain in a liquid state like nitrogen. But when we look at the plasma and the creation of GANs and the purity of the plasma, there we find the basis of truth, because the truth is a reflection of the purity, and the emotion is a reflection of the truth. And so when we say the plasma purity, and it's a reflection of the emotional purity, that emotional purity would be in a plasmatic state, different from an emotional purity in a physical state. And we all know that we don't have emotional purity in a physical state. And so this is why the susceptibility is so important, because when we see the glass, which is made of silicone, which is not transparent, but we can see through the glass. And so there's an alignment of the crystalline formation which allows this to happen. And that means there has to be a degree of purity to allow that to happen. So we look at the GANs in the bottle, and we see that there has a purity there as well. But somehow we've created a hole in that GANs. And there's a purity in that hole because it's complete. And so we're seeing different types of transmission within the embodiment of this carafe, where the silicon is kept together in the form of glass within the environment of the Earth space, and the GANs which we created is in there, and the water is in there, and that water has an affinity with the GANs, so it becomes pure, and it becomes plasmatic, and interacts with the air that's in the water, in the carafe, and it too becomes plasmatic. And we know that because we have a manifestation of a field force in the middle of the GANs. And what's in that hole? And is our soul in that hole? And is that the manifestation of the soul? So it's not shining, it's transparent. And when we say, are we shining? Do we have a glow? Well, it seems like the X-rays can pass right through us, and they can see nothing except for the bone structure, which is made of calcium. And the only other things that it can see is things that have hardened, things that have materialized. And so we see that the heart materialization precedes the brain, and then the brain follows. And then we've been discussing the new plasma technology and how we've been sharing our intention. And so we see a vision, and we call it the Sanya vision, because what we have is the fields coming together through this vision, utilizing the so-called inert gases and the hydrogen. So this is all part of the transmission. So the transmission involves the release of this binding energy, and it precedes the retrieval of the beneficial energy. So field release precedes field capture. The giving precedes the taking. The emission precedes the absorption. And motion cannot exist without the coexistence, because emotion is a product of existence. So motion and coexistence reside in both matter states. And so therefore the plasma state is the dominant state, and it precedes the physical dominant state. The problem lies with us, because we are so dimension centric. And so it's definitely not man space. It's probably Earth space, but is it? It could be sun space, but whatever it is dimension space, and it has to do with the proximity and the nature. And so that is reflected in the pressure and the luster. But what's the messenger? And so we find that our dominance is based on the feedback messenger: sound, light, heat, pressure, and luster. This is what is dominating our life. And so we become feedback dominant. And feedback dominant is the physical domination. And so we create the GANs through the gravitational nature of our physicality. If we could reverse that and manifest the GANs through the magnetical feeding energy, then we would be part of the new plasma energy. And we are, because we are here. We were all born. But what we need to do is to understand more about what we are, who we are, and what exactly we're doing. So we've introduced the Keshe Space Plasma Research Teams, and they'll be operating and doing the research that we all need, so that we can have more choices. On the one hand, in the post-November the 11th, 2023 era, we have no choice. The only way to get into the outer space is to understand the transmutation space. But we do have other choices, because we have this beautiful earth space and that graceful inner space. and we can transcend all of these spaces. We just have to understand what it is that we're transmitting. And so as we are in the advanced transmission stage, we have to understand how does this greater oneness come together. And as we've seen in the 529 Knowledge Seekers workshops, representing over 10 years of teaching, we are at the point where we have transcended the limitations of nuclear science. And so we welcome the world to the Sanya Conference. And thanks to the Brazil Knowledge Team, we have all been able to share through the transmission energies and transmission fields that have linked up with the plasma dome around the Earth. And so we will be there every day for the 4 days. And it's very easy. All you have to do is be truthful with your intention. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. So we welcome all the beautiful knowledge seekers. Remember the purpose. There's a world peace treaty. That's the only way we can get into the outer space. You have to sign it with true intention, with true meaning, because we're cornered in a two-dimensional universe. We're wrestling with the idea of trying to find heaven through the field transmission of vertical motion with the guidance of forward motion and perpendicular rotation. And we're feeling the pressure of the third dimension of truth. But the luster is the message manifestation of the physical transmission dimension. And plasma science needs to continue to be delivered daily in exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new outer space age, and stay tuned for the next exciting episode. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed this session. Is there anyone else who has any comments that they'd like to add, perhaps? Claudia, can I put you on the spot?
Oh, yes, please.
Did I do well to incorporate your Sanya vision?
No, you did it very well. Thank you.
Is there anything else you'd like to elaborate with this vision?
This vision came to my mind that that's a place that will be in Sanya, that the knowledge seekers will welcome around in a room, empty room, and must have these magraphs around the room, and like the cosmic rays material in upstairs, up off the heads of the knowledge seekers. And and my imagination was that. So if you want to clarify, thank you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Does anyone else have any comment?
Claudia.
Oh, Randy, we got to do something about that microphone.
Still bad, eh? Okay, I'll work on that.
Try it again. Tell me what you were going to comment on.
What I was saying is the fact that when I look at that big intent drawn there is a lot of imagination. So is my voice any clearer or is it getting worse?
No, it seems when the volume is high, the unit kicks out. So I think what you're trying to say is that there are a lot of inputs in terms of energy coming in from all different directions. And so this picture is kind of showing all the things that are converging together. And so each one of these is kind of representative of all the attendees in Sanya. How am I doing there? Ah, you just closed your mic.
Yeah, very good.
Oh, okay, perfect. I heard that. The answer was very good. Okay, well, as you can see, the limitations of the physical technology has been surpassed by the mental gymnastics of all of us. So that's a success story. Elias, what do you think? We should bring this meeting to a close because the Brazil sessions are starting shortly.
Yes, Alex, they'll be starting in about 7 minutes, so maybe you can end it now and give people a break, and then they can come back and go to those meetings.
Yes. So is everybody have the connection? Does anybody need the connection? Okay, then. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I thank you for allowing me to continue to present this. And we've had a few technical glitches, but I think we're getting the message through. That's what's important. And I think we all see that not only at this meeting that we can all communicate from different parts of the world, but we're getting very serious about what's happening in Sanya, and all of us are getting together with this, what's happening. So please join us. And I should mention also one of the things that's happened. The sessions, although they have a time limit, have been extended gracefully by the Brazilian team. And so they have been running for pretty much, I guess, let's say 12 hours. So even during the meetings that we have an opportunity to all be together, we all have an opportunity to come if it's a little bit more convenient, or if we enjoy the company, enjoy the peace and serenity of the session, and shall we say, playing with the plasma fields. It's important to have fun as we're doing these things. So, does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, on that note, I want to thank Elias and Randy for co-hosting today. And I also want to thank all the knowledge seekers who've been in attendance today. We will be stressing you more in the future because you are all the pioneers and you're not alone. That's the beauty. So, Elias, if you can take us out with a disclaimer, I think, and that'll bring the meeting to the end. Are we okay with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, everybody. And please carry on to the Brazilian meeting if you wish, and stay in touch with all the upcoming events culminating, of course, with the One Nation, One Planet coming up on Tuesday, and the Knowledge Seekers Workshop coming up on Thursday, which is probably going to be another blockbuster. So looking forward to it. And thanks all. So over to you, Elias.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GANs processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.